On this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast, how to delegate at a garage sale.
Welcome to the Crushing Debt Podcast with your host, Florida attorney Shawn, where our goal is to help you get rid of the financial bullies in your life.
So welcome back to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast. My name is Shawn, owner and founder of Yesner Law. And welcome back your financial coach, George Corbello. Welcome, George.
How are you, sir? I'm doing well. I got to say, though, I'm learning more about, food and my grocery bill. And I'm starting to realize there's not much I can eat. It's a lot of it I got to eat. It's got to be organic and it's got to be grass fed and it's got to be healthy. And it's starting to notice that's a lot of money.
I'm getting to the point. So I go to Costco. At first, it was once a month. And what I was buying at Costco was lasting me a good month.
Right. Then
it was every other week. Now it's like weekly. And I was talking to my wife yesterday. So we get there's a company, Chef Ami, that does
that's a good place.
They send you the ingredients and you put the meals together. It's not frozen. It's not prepackaged. They send you fresh ingredients. And if any of you want an introduction, let me know. I can get you samples, free samples and sample weeks and whatever. But so I was getting, you can get different serving portion sizes.
Yes.
And my wife made one last night. I had to go to a board meeting for my homeowners association. So my wife made one and I got home and I said, "Are there any leftovers?" And she's like, not really. No, my 11-year-old is starting to eat like a teenager.
It tore it up.
So now I got to go to Costco. So what I go to Costco and I buy the big package of the small cucumbers and the small red, yellow, and orange peppers. And I give each of the boys, 1 or 2 little cucumbers and 2 or 3 little peppers in every lunch. I go through in a week. I go through a packet of cucumbers and a packet of peppers in a week.
I mean, hey, it sounds better than Doritos and Cheetos and things like that. But now
I gotta go back to Costco now.
Costco appreciates your business,
and I can never get out of there for less than like $150.
Yeah, that's I'm feeling the pain itself. I don't know if it's inflation, but I feel like eating healthy is definitely a lot more taxing on the dollar itself. So it's one of the things I've just noticed. Not that I'm complaining. I mean, you gotta, we're getting a little older. We should be eating healthier anyway. But,
although I will also tell you from experience, eating with diabetes.
You're challenged.
Not eating with diabetes, but the medicine that I need to use to control. And I'm not even on insulin. I couldn't imagine what my medical bills, what my prescription bills would be if I was on insulin. So I feel for everyone out there that is having to take insulin. And if you can get it under control, that in and of itself would save you a couple of $100, probably a month.
That's it. It looks like our conversation with Mo is rubbing off on us, a little bleeding into every episode here. There you go. Get back into delegation at the garage sale. My friend, you got to explain that one.
Yeah. So for those of you that are longtime listeners, my community association doesn't allow a garage sale unless it's part of the community-wide garage sale. So I can't just say, hey, next weekend, my house is going to hold a garage sale.
Right.
It's got to be part of the community-wide. And they do it twice a year. They do it in May and they do it in October. So what I realized a couple of years ago is that garage sales are great places to practice, because if I have something for sale and I don't make the sale, what have I lost?
Right. You have more stuff in your house.
Right. I got to put it back in my house. So I lost labor and I lost, $2.
Right.
Who cares? So I began experimenting with different techniques and trying different things because it was a low risk environment to do it.
Right.
And then what I realized is, hey, wait a minute, I got a podcast. Maybe some of this garbage that I'm practicing would be good for my listeners.
Right.
So I've actually got now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 6 episodes related solely to lessons I learned at the previous garage sales.
Okay.
And so the first one, and I'll put them all in the notes, but the first one's episode 68. That one was all about negotiation.
Yep.
Then episode 86 was all about presentation.
Okay.
So how am I just throwing it out there, or is there some method to where I put the.
Wait, you mean
different
I
things.
can't just put it in this big plastic bag or put it into a container and say, here's, $5?
My wife will put something out there that's broken, and I'm like, we'll never sell that. It's broken. And it might detract from other things being sold.
Right.
Episode or part 3, episode 118 was all about patience.
Yeah. Okay.
So in terms of, I don't necessarily have to make the sale.
Right.
Somebody else might come along and want that same thing.
Correct.
Episode 168 was all about preparation. So am I, when someone says, well, how much is that? Am I going, well, or do I have some price in mind? Episode 241 was all about the approach. So with episode 241, with that garage sale, I experimented, and I actually had fun with, sometimes I was a jerk. Sometimes I would ignore the people that walked up to the garage sale.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would be really friendly and engage with them.
Okay.
Sometimes I'd be really super nice. Do you want some water?
Sure.
I'm making Bloody Marys, that kind of stuff.
Well, there you go.
And I kind of gauged at different personality styles, where did I get more of the sales? And then the last one that I recorded subsequent to, or previous to today, the last one that I recorded was 270. And that was all about knowing your target market. So like I was telling you, I just discovered in my community, more baby stuff sells in March than, or in May rather, than the one in October.
Okay.
So if I've got a bunch of baby stuff, I probably don't even pull it out for the October sale. I save it for the May sale.
Right. That makes sense.
So those are the lessons I learned. So we just finished our garage sale last weekend. And now my kids are getting older. They're 8 and 11.
Okay.
And, my older son is now starting to learn and understand money. And so it was funny. So we'd have something for sale and it would sell, and they'd hand him the money.
Right.
And he's like, it's my money. I sold it. And I said, well, that might be true, but I was the one that originally bought it.
That's true.
So
okay.
It's my money.
There you go. Well, he's negotiating with you already.
Yeah, he's negotiating with me already. But I thought, as I watched him interact with people, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to kind of sit back and watch his sales techniques,
right,
and his strategies?
The mad scientists at work here.
So I delegated to him.
Gotcha.
And we have, so my in-laws show up, and my wife had another friend of hers show up. Speaking about preparation and presentation,
right?
My wife's friend showed up at our garage sale this week, and she put out some stuff. My in-laws showed up and they put out some stuff. Their stuff attracted people to our garage sale that got them to buy more of our stuff.
Makes sense.
So talking about presentation and preparation and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And my father-in-law was funny. Everything was $5.
It didn't matter what it was.
But he was consistent.
Okay.
So, and he didn't miss a beat. How much is that? $5. I mean, there was no,
here's
no.
the price. No, the price is what you get.
And he was willing to negotiate. So if somebody said, well, what would you take 3? Yeah. Because that means he didn't have to throw it in his trunk and lug it back.
Right. Exactly.
Or put it in my garage.
Makes sense.
So
know the price and know the max and min as a seller. It's, like, hey, I want to start at this point, but I'm willing to go down to this point, nothing lower than that.
Right.
That makes sense. And I think, it's funny. A lot of the things you're saying as well, we think, it's a garage sale, just people out there, they'll look at my stuff and they'll just buy it. And I remember some of the older the older garage communities, same thing up in Pennsylvania. You're looking for something specific. So it's like, what are you looking for? And again, baby stuff that time of year could be, hey, a lot of the popular that I've seen is tools.
Yeah.
Going to get tools, something from the garage, being able to resell some of that stuff, on eBay or anything like that too.
There was a period of time where people wanted broken electronics.
Yeah.
And so electronics that I was either going to take to the dump or throw in the garbage can, I actually made some money off of.
Nice.
Because that's what they were looking for.
No, that makes sense. So, I mean, I've seen obviously vintage cards, toys. Those are the things that I know a lot of collectors go around and look for, those types of things, video games, some collector stuff.
Video games lately. So we had people come by our garage sale this year and say, do you have any old video games? And we do. I mean, I have my old PlayStation.
Okay.
And I've got games from from the late 90s, early 2000s, games that are 20 years old that are in good. Because my older son, we set up the PlayStation in his room, so he plays those games.
Yeah.
And so it's funny. Somebody came walking up and, do you have any video games? And I went, no, not for sale. And my younger son went, whoa. What about all the games and I was, no, we're not selling those, dude. We're playing those. We're not selling those.
He's like, well, wait, Dad, let's negotiate.
He's like, hey, well, so what happened was later that night, so Tampa Bay has a soccer team, the Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yep.
And so my son is on a competitive soccer team. And our end of the year party, the team chipped in and helped buy tickets for all the kids and their parents.
Okay.
So we had a team outing at the Rowdies soccer game, which they won 2-0.
Nice.
But I said to my boys, if we sell a lot of stuff, if we sell X level of stuff, we'll use some of that money and you guys can buy souvenirs at the Rowdies game.
Nice.
So that actually fired them up. And talking about delegation,
right?
I'm having to, set everything up, set up the tent, set up the chairs, put the stuff out, get it out of the garage, clean the garage while it's empty, and I'm doing all this other stuff as people are walking by, holding the money, making change, doing all that other stuff. So people would come by and say, "Well, how much is this?" And I go, "I don't know." And I turn to my son, "How much is it?" And so delegating to him.
What was some of the, I'd imagine the first few were a little bit scary, but what were some of the prices coming out of them at the beginning?
Well, so
$40.
Yeah, well, it was. He doesn't quite understand the concept yet.
Right.
And so someone would say, "How much is that?" And I'd turn to him and say, "How much is that?" And he'd go, $8. And I'm like,
well, he was confident.
Dude, it's like a Power Ranger action figure that you could buy in the store for $8.
Right.
You're not going to sell it here for $8. And so she $8. And I go, maybe a little bit lower.
Keep trying.
And so I'm negotiating with my son for the person that wants to buy. And I don't know that they would have bought at his price.
Right.
But there also has to be some level of reasonableness.
Of course. And that's a good point too. It's setting the price. We can look at, Amazon's and eBay's for kind of what's out there.
Yeah.
But it's a garage sale, right? You're talking people coming in and looking for a deal. So what's that max amount that you start with? And obviously what's the lowest you'll go as part of, again, there's a reason why it's out there.
Right.
You're trying to get rid of it.
Well, and that's what I did. One of the previous garage sale episodes, I think the very first one about negotiation, part of what I talked about in that episode is there is value to not having to put the thing back.
Correct.
And so it was funny. My kids would go inside and grab toys to bring outside for the garage sale. And I'm like, no, let's get rid of the stuff outside first.
Right.
Then we can worry about getting rid of all the stuff inside.
Adding more stuff.
Because it's not, my rule was once it comes out of the house and onto my driveway, it doesn't go back in.
Right. That's the game plan. Don't go back in. It's either
getting sold or it's going to Goodwill.
Makes sense.
One of the two. So stop bringing garbage out.
It's going to be empty in the house.
The process here is to clean out the garage so I can put my car in it, not to put more garbage in it.
I get the feeling you'll put more stuff in there. Come on now. Isn't that the purpose of the garage? Is a storage unit, not for the car, for your stuff.
So my younger son was all excited because we bought them over the holidays. We bought both of my boys alarm clocks.
Yep.
And the younger one uses it and actually wakes up to it every morning. The older one just uses it as a nightlight and an alarm clock.
Right.
But both of them are Bluetooth enabled. Both kids have their iPads hooked up to their alarm clocks. And so my younger son was so excited, brought his iPad out, brought his alarm clock out, was playing music during the garage sale. And we were having a good
nice atmosphere.
I was making Bloody Marys. I mean, we were having not for the kids.
Not for the kids, but
we were having a good time at the garage sale.
For the parents.
The whole community kind of gets together.
That's it. It's a nice time to get out there and meet some neighbors.
But he ended up putting the iPad in one of the boxes.
Oh no.
So after the garage sale was over, there were 2 boxes that made it back into the garage that we knew we weren't going to donate or we are going to donate, but maybe it's a later day. So 2 of these boxes come back in the garage. They're on my workbench. The garage sale was Saturday morning. Sunday night, my son is like, where's my iPad?
Freaking out.
Dude, you had it last.
Right.
He said, the last time I saw it, we were at the garage sale. I'm like, well, I know that nobody walked into my garage, and I know that the iPad was in the garage, and I know nobody walked into the garage.
Right.
So I immediately go to my phone. I pull up the Find My iPhone app, but his iPad had the battery drained.
I had drained
It was
out.
playing
Gotcha.
music all day, so
Sure.
we couldn't find it. So I'm like, I wonder what this thing has to be in my garage. I know nobody walked into my garage, and so I park my car. We have a 3-car garage, double door and a single door,
Yep.
and I park my car outside the single door. So for somebody to walk into my garage and steal his iPad, they would have had to walk in the garage, past my wife's car,
Right.
in the 2-car garage part, turned into the 1-car garage part, grabbed his iPad, and then walked all.
It's like
There's
a gladiator.
no way anyone would have done that.
No, sure.
It was in one of the boxes.
Of course. Hey, it's another lesson. Watch where you put stuff.
That was almost
That at least it wasn't sold.
or dumped into a bin at Goodwill.
Well, it would have been a nice donation.
Goodwill would have been like,
thank you for the donation itself.
So
I love it.
But meanwhile, getting back to the actual topic at hand,
Sellers. The sellers. But I like it. I heard delegation, obviously, have fun, create an atmosphere. I heard part of the negotiation is knowing the price and having a max and min with it. It's important to have cash, right? I would imagine too, as part of not only a seller, but as being a buyer,
right?
Going in there and saying negotiation, but don't have the cash. Oh, I'll be right back. Like that just means that you weren't really interested.
I know to go, and I also have, so I prepare by having some cash. So
Right.
if they say, if I say it's $3 and they say I only got a $5,
Right.
And well, here I got change. That way they don't walk away.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's key. That's part of the preparation. But I think it's just knowing that there's going to be cash. Are we, I mean, we're at that age though, like, hey, let me Venmo that to you. It
was, I didn't even think of that. But my neighbor, so I was talking to my neighbor and some other guy comes up and the other guy that walked up to my neighbor went to buy something. And they just pulled out their phones and started Venmoing.
It's a different. A little worried. I always worry about cash apps, but it makes it a lot easier where it's like, hey, let me just Venmo you that money. Does that make sense?
It was funny. So we made about $150.
Not bad. That's a good score.
And we had about 40 of it in ones, in dollar bills. So my wife, so we're splitting up the cash. I pull out the wad of ones. I'm like, here, $40. And she's like, what? And when we were out later at the soccer game, I'm like, pull out all that strip club money I gave you.
Oh my gosh.
41.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Hey, as long as not quarters, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
You're working in the right direction.
But I mean, it was cool to delegate to the boys.
Yeah, they got to do it somehow.
Yeah, why don't you guys try selling this? And they were wheeling and dealing.
Nice. I mean, the one thing as adults, when we take about we think I'm not a good negotiator. That seems to be the case. But then you have an opportunity at a garage sale where, again, the numbers are not high.
Right.
I'm negotiate $3, $4.50, that kind of thing. But we go into a car dealership, we go into and trying to negotiate with thousands of dollars on the line. So, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. Obviously, good lesson for the kids. Yeah. But a good lesson for the adults. It's like, hey, as a seller, I need to be prepared with this information. I need to know what my numbers are, what the price is, how much cash I have. It doesn't change how many zeros you're at the garage sale or at the dealership.
Yeah, same concepts. It's just different commas, different zeros. And the other thing that I did with the previous episodes is, not only in terms of negotiating to buy a car, but what if you're negotiating with your creditors?
Well, that's a good point.
What if you're negotiating to get out of debt? What's your negotiation strategy?
Yeah.
How are you presenting your case
I like it.
to the creditor? How are you presenting your case to Visa to show them that you can't pay?
Right.
How patient are you? If there's been times where I've been talking to clients and they've said, well, follow up. And I kind of say, well, wait a minute, we got to put the brakes on. Because if I follow up, and they know you're anxious to get it settled,
why would they?
Their number goes up.
Yeah, why would they?
If you're that anxious,
yep.
How do you prepare? And I even talked about that in the episode. Are you sending, here are my tax returns to prove that I make X amount of dollars a year? Here are my bank statements. I was on a garnishment hearing the other day. And one of the things we had to prove is that my client was the head of household. Now, my client has an adult son, but still qualifies as the head of household for supporting the adult son.
Okay.
But one of the ways that we had to prove that the parent supported the adult son, I showed the son's bank account.
Oh, okay.
And the son's bank account showed the only deposits into his account were from the parent. There was no job. So we were able to prove to the judge sole support is from mom. So how are you preparing? What's your approach? A lot of times with creditors, you catch more flies with honey.
Yep.
So are you being aggressive with the creditor? Are you saying, hey, creditor, I know I couldn't pay you, but it's your fault I couldn't pay you? Or which people make that argument.
Oh my goodness.
It's not my fault I can't pay my
I
Visa
didn't do
bill.
it. It wasn't me.
Yeah, well, it's not my fault I couldn't pay my, but I had somebody call me during the week and say, my ex ran up all these charges.
Right.
And I think that would be a legitimate defense if it was last week. But in this particular case, the ex ran up all the charges on the card 4 years ago.
So it's some time.
Right. So how do I go back to the creditor now and say, well, we didn't complain about it 4 years ago.
It wasn't a problem then.
But now, and we've been paying on it, as our bills come. But now that we can't pay anymore, now it's suddenly
a problem
without authorization.
Gotcha.
So, what's your approach with your creditor? And then the last was the target market, and even kind of with delegation. One of the things I noticed at the garage sale, and one of the things I talked about, I think, with the target market episode, my sons may have been able to get a slightly higher price than me.
True.
You're batting the eyelashes.
Yeah, that's true.
We're going to the soccer game later today. So when you're negotiating with the creditor, a lot of times I delegate the negotiations that we do here in the office to my staff. And the concept there is, if I call the creditor, I'm Shawn Yesner,
the
Esquire,
big bad lawyer. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking to an hourly employee that does not have a law degree.
Yeah.
And so they may want to be in a position of power to say, well, I'm going to show this highfalutin attorney that he can't mess with me. But if my hourly wage employees call the creditor's hourly wage employees, then it's more of a peer-to-peer.
Doesn't feel
right
like there's a disconnect, or we're not on the same playing field,
right?
Kind of thing.
So
okay.
That's why I think kids are a lot better at. I don't think I would do so well in a lemonade stand.
I think you'd be.
I think I'd just
questioned by the police.
Some creepy old man selling lemonade on the side of the road.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, if you had some of those Bloody Marys, maybe you get the right audience for the stand. Yeah. That's all.
A Bloody Mary stand.
There you go.
That would be. I think I'd need a license for that.
I think you need a license, at least in this state. That's for sure.
So,
that's too fun. But again, I love the idea of seller's mentality at a garage sale, buyer's mentality at a garage sale as well. Like, I'm going in, I know what I'm looking for. If I'm a collector or if I'm looking for baby stuff. And I love the idea of, like, even antiquities, people looking for some old stuff that you can, like, vintage things, clothing. Now, would you buy clothes? I mean, we do Goodwill, I guess, like that, but clothes at a garage sale, what's the preference there?
For me personally, I've got plenty of I don't even buy clothes from the store. I got enough clothes.
You got enough suits look good out there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I will. I think for me, the kind of stuff that I'm interested personally at garage sales, it's movies,
right?
Probably video
records,
probably
collector items.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
My sons kind of not pissed me off, but they annoyed me because we're selling all this stuff. We're making all this cash. And they said, can we take some of the cash and go to the other garage sales? I'm like, no, we didn't.
Can we bring more stuff into our home?
We didn't get rid of all of our garbage to go buy somebody else's garbage.
But that's the circle of life, man. Okay.
Although now that I say it and now that I think about it, it may be so in the October garage sale. Maybe what I'll do is once I watch them negotiate and collect a little bit of money,
right?
Maybe I will take them around and watch them negotiate to buy some stuff and see how they do on the other side.
Gotta practice.
Yeah.
Practice. I like the idea itself, man. I gotta say, I did not expect to learn, and yet I am learning that at the next garage sale, I need to practice and put some of these skills into use. So I like that. It's a pretty good. And I love the fact that you're right. I've got older kids. I've got, 20 and 15. So I think I might have to put them to work.
There you go.
And start learning how to negotiate on that. It's like, oh my goodness, the first time they're negotiating is for either their car or house. Might be the bad time to learn those lessons.
Let them learn those lessons at a garage sale.
Makes sense.
The other thing I might do is pull out the old pressure washer and tell my son, hey, go start knocking on doors and see.
There you go.
See who wants their driveway pressure washed.
Rake the leaves.
Let him learn some sales skills and some
not a bad idea.
Roll up your sleeve skills. But,
not a bad idea. I like it.
But I think that'll do it for this week's episode. We do have a couple of things that we want to talk about here at the end real quick. Our longtime editor, Mark Purvis, he's with legacyspotlight.com. So if you want to capture some of these stories, if you want to capture some of the stories of your family from older generations or for future generations, that's what legacyspotlight.com is for. You can contact Mark at that website. He can come out. He can do the videos. He can do the editing. He can do all that stuff. So contact Mark Purvis for that. We still have the Patreon page, the Crushing Debt Patreon page. So if you want to give us a little bit of support, any money that you give us through that Patreon page goes right back into the podcast to make it better for you. We're not making money off of it. Yeah. We're not, that's, the Patreon page isn't paying our mortgages. It's going,
although that wouldn't be a bad thing, but no,
I wouldn't object,
but no, I think it's more of just, let's grow the podcast and do some great things together. That's what we're looking for.
We've got the social media channels. I posted to YouTube the other day for Yesner Law. We've got
time, buddy.
I know Corbello Financial, the TikTok page. But I think that will pretty much do it for this week's episode.
I think I'm going to go get my kids to do some sales. This weekend. I think one of them, I'll tell you that one of them is actually thinking about like babysitting. The young one is like, I need to make some money. And it's like, again, sales, marketing. There's a lot of techniques in there. So I'm going to try and use what we learned today, see if we can apply them in other areas.
There you go.
Well.
Anyway, we do hope if you have garage sales, what kinds of things are you doing, practicing, having selling.
When's the next one?
Having fun at, let us know, shoot us an email. I know we talked about doing a no spend day.
Ooh.
So maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more in future episodes. We'll set up a little challenge.
The listeners.
There you go. I got to do it on a day that I don't need gas.
There you go.
Okay. I got to make sure we do it on a day.
Fair enough.
Because I know I'd automatically lose because I would run out of gas. So otherwise, if you want to check out those other garage sale episodes, I'll put links to all those in the notes. But other than that, we hope that you're able to use some of these lessons so that you have more money at the end of the month rather than month at the end of the money. And we will talk to you in next week's episode of the Crushing Debt podcast.
If you have questions that you think would make a great topic for a future episode, please email Shawn or connect with us on social media. Shawn Yesner and Yesner Law, PL, are Florida licensed attorneys. The information contained in this week's episode is not a substitute for legal advice. Your situation may differ, especially if you are located somewhere other than the state of Florida. If you have questions, please contact our office or contact a local attorney. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Crushing Debt Podcast.